it's outperforming everything else. And that's the perfect news story. You want the whole industry to stand up on its own 2 feet and then run, and not need the sort of the green agenda to push it.
Anthony, thank you so much for joining me on the Green Techpreneur podcast today. I wanted to speak to you because as the founder of Green Deck, you help renewable energy companies find funding and develop their projects. And as we all know, we're living in a very challenging time right now when we're headed towards the recession. We've got a massive energy crisis, we've got a drought crisis, and companies just really desperately need help with developing their renewable projects, getting those off the ground. Society needs help, governments need help, right? And you kind of tie a few different strands together. Could you maybe just share a little bit about why you entered into this industry?
I studied mechanical engineering as a master's a long time ago. I'm 40 now. But then ran a vodka company for 7 years, which I started while I was at university. And that was great fun, but not really what I wanted to do. And I always wanted to go into sustainable energy. And so I've been banging my head against the industry now for 12 years in different forms and structures, having run my own businesses. But I think it's not so much the world needs as opposed to there's so much opportunity. It's a case of just putting people together and making it work. And with any sort of project development or technology development or funding or anything else, it's all these disparate parts that you can bring together to create value and make things work. So as a broker and looking at that, and I engage with the clients. So being able to add value and help streamline the process and help with some of the editing on investment memorandums and modeling as well. It really helps having relatively unbiased. My interests are all very much aligned, but to try and sort of shake down what's really needed and how to deliver it.
Well, what are some common themes that you've seen that people do wrong and ways they can improve?
For project development, which tends to be where I sit in most of the time. So I do a bit of work with technology. Most of the time I'm looking at developing projects. So that's the solar farm, wind farm, a battery site, energy from waste project. So we're talking about utility scale energy production or the infrastructure around them. But you need to have 4 things lined up, and you also need to de-risk the project as much as you can. The investors are looking at it in terms of how do we look at this to get it past our debt providers and to get it past the board. So that's all about taking as much risk off the table as you can. So you need to firstly have the land in place and the sort of agreements for the land. You need to have the proven energy resource, which is going to be the sun, the wind, the supply of the waste for an energy from waste plant, the connection points, in particular for batteries, which is a very separate and bizarre market. Then you need to have the build permits, and you need the grid connection. And once you've got those 4 things, then essentially you've created value. And from now on in, it's pretty much plain sailing, relatively speaking. Then it's just engineering and construction, which isn't risk by comparison to the early stages.
Do you have any tips for startups, around getting their messaging right?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think it depends on your audience. So you should always know your audience and have them in mind. Yeah. So keep it simple, keep the messaging clear, and don't make it too early or too many pages. If you can't do it in 14 pages, you shouldn't be doing it at all, really.
Where do you hope to be within the next 5 to 10 years?
My simple thought is to create a sustainable utility that owns renewable assets, but also has no shareholders. So essentially it's funded via philanthropic donation, but then it's also a commercial venture that's for profit for itself.
And do you have a quote or a motto or something that a business mantra?
Do the hard things first. I think if you've got all these things in front of you, just think what's the difficult thing and what needs to get done that's holding you back.